We all know the records, the crazy highlight reels, the massive stadiums. But in today's zooming way past all that glitz to uncover the raw, gritty reality of where it all actually began. We're going to deconstruct the exact environment, the staggering everyday challenges, and the sheer, unstoppable force of will that incubated one of the greatest athletes in human history. Let's get right into it. Just think about the sheer, mind-bending contrast between where he ended up and his deeply impoverished beginnings. On one hand, you've got this fragile kid in the hillside neighborhood of Santo Antonio, running around with this mop of unruly curls, desperately chasing a deflated soccer ball. And on the other, an unstoppable global sporting titan. The gap between those two realities is absolutely massive, right? It almost defies logic. So how on earth do you get from point A to point B? Well, spoiler alert, it definitely wasn't magic. It was a relentless, agonizing grind. To really wrap our heads around his elite mentality, we first have to understand the daily survival stakes of his childhood. We're talking about the crushing weight of poverty here. This wasn't a situation where he just had to work, a little bit harder than the kids at some fancy academy. No, this was a boy actively trying to outrun poverty every single day of his life. And that foundational struggle, that's what set the baseline for his entire psychological makeup. Because when basic survival is your starting line, your drive to succeed operates on a completely different frequency. And it wasn't just his family situation holding him back, it was literally his geography too. He wasn't born in a major European football hub like Lisbon or Madrid or Manchester. He was born in Madeira. It's this isolated Portuguese island that's actually closer to the coast of Africa than mainland Europe. You've got fierce Atlantic Ocean winds constantly sweeping across its rocky shores. It was a remote outpost where opportunity was incredibly scarce. Basically, if you wanted to get noticed by the global footballing world, this was just about the absolute hardest place on earth to do it from. So, to put things into perspective, there was zero money for luxuries in his house. Honestly, even proper soccer gear was totally out of the question, which makes his rise even more wild. His mom, Maria Dolores, worked tirelessly as a cook and a cleaner, literally just to keep basic food on the table. His dad, José Diniz, was a gardener, but he was battling some really deep-seated demons and severe alcohol addiction. The daily reality? 4 kids, Cristiano and his 3 older siblings, cramped together, sharing a tiny single bedroom in a tin roof shack. And when those fierce winter storms rolled over the mountains, man, that tin roof leaked constantly. Every single day was an exercise in pure survival. But here's the thing. What he completely lacked in material wealth, he made up for with an obsessive, almost frightening level of passion. He literally turned his harsh environment into his ultimate advantage. The street basically became his very first stadium. Think about it. When you don't have manicured grass or an entire coaching staff or state-of-the-art training facilities, you have to look around and just use what you have. And for Cristiano, what he had were the incredibly steep, totally unforgiving asphalt streets of Funchal. The crazy thing is that unforgiving topography essentially acted as his first and honestly most ruthless technical coach. Think about the mechanics of it. First, he had to master his physical balance on these steep asphalt inclines. I mean, you can't just run normally on a massive hill, right? Second, he had to anticipate wildly unpredictable bounces off those rocky, uneven roads. The ball literally never moves perfectly on rough asphalt. And finally, he had to keep impossibly tight control of a ball that constantly threatened to just roll all the way down the mountain. If he lost control, the ball was gone. This environment literally forced him to develop world-class footwork and balance just to play a basic pickup game. And he didn't even need a pristine pitch. He literally just needed something, anything to kick. When his mom would send him out to grab groceries, he wouldn't just walk. Oh no. He would dribble a deflated ball or, get this, even rolled up socks all the way to the shop and back. And if he didn't have those, a crushed soda can would do the trick perfectly. The obsession was just constant. Every errand, every single moment he spent outside was an opportunity to train his feet. Naturally, this intense obsession soon led to the formal start of his actual career. Born in '85 in Santo António, the kid was just desperate to play on a real team. So at age 7, he joins this local amateur club called Andorinha, which, fun fact, is actually where his dad worked as the kit man. This club is super vital to our story, though, because it became the very first place where his highly unique, incredibly intense personality was put on public display in a structured team environment. His new teammates quickly picked up on his vibe and gave him 2 defining nicknames, and these perfectly encapsulated his completely dual-sided psychology on the pitch. They called him Abelhinha, which translates to Little B, and they also called him Crybaby. Now, these aren't just cute little childhood nicknames, right? They're actually direct windows into the mindset of a future champion. And this right here is exactly why this matters to you, because greatness requires two things: an endless, buzzing work ethic and a deep, agonizing hatred of losing. As Abelina, he was incredibly fast, deceptively skillful, and he never ever stopped buzzing around the pitch. His energy was just boundless. But then you have the crybaby side. If he passed the ball and his teammates failed to score, or if they lost a match, actual physical tears would stream down his face. Even as a young child, he utterly despised losing with every single fiber of his being. It was this visceral, deeply emotional reaction to failure. So by the time Madeira's biggest club, CD Nacional, scooped him up at age 10, that obsessive passion had already evolved into this elite, completely mature work ethic. His talent was simply way too massive for a small amateur club to contain anymore, and local scouts were already whispering about this skinny kid from the hills who was just dribbling past entire teams. But talent alone, that wasn't going to get him off the island. He desperately needed a mindset that matched those physical abilities. And he absolutely knew he was different. Even at just 10 years old, the lengths this kid went to were staggering. He would actively sneak out of his house late at night just to practice, using the darkness of his neighborhood as a cover so nobody would stop him. And he literally used the street lamps as his own personal spotlights. While everyone else in town was sleeping, he was grinding. Even at that young age, his work ethic mirrored the exact elite mentality that would define his entire adult career. He recognized that football was his one, singular ticket out of the poverty that threatened to consume his family. The island was starting to feel way too small, and a much bigger horizon was calling his name. So today, I really want you to take a hard look at his journey, from a leaky tin roof to absolute global dominance, and ask yourself a question. If you had absolutely no resources, what could your obsession build? Cristiano didn't start with wealth or perfectly manicured fields or fancy state-of-the-art boots. He started with a deflated ball, rocky hills, and this absolute agonizing refusal to accept failure. So, how can you channel your own limitations, your own metaphorical steep asphalt hills, into an unstoppable advantage in your own life? Think about that the next time you feel like you don't have the right tools to succeed.